Maximum loan to value is 90%. Security and insurance required. Product fees may apply. Over 18s and residential mortgages only. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Credit facility subject to repayment and financial status. Warning, your home is at risk if you do not keep up payments on a mortgage or any other loan secured on it. Warning, if you do not meet the repayments on your loan, your account will go into arrears. This may affect your credit rating, which may limit your ability to access credit in the future. Warning, you may have to pay charges if you pay off a fixed rate loan early. Ulster Bank Ireland DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball
with Air Sport. Every Champions Cup and now every Pro14 game only on the Air Sport pack.
The weekend of the Pro14's come and gone. We've got Ruaidhri O'Connor from the Irish Independent here in studio. Thanks a million for coming in. Sure. We'll get to the weekend's action in a moment. Interesting news coming out of Leicester this evening. Matt O'Connor, after a whopping one game this season, has been relieved of his duties with immediate effect, and Jordan Murphy's going to go in as interim head coach. So it's fairly dramatic stuff as well, isn't it? Matt appointed head coach in April 2017, says Peter Tom, the chairman, on the basis of his previous premiership experience, has knowledge of the club, but we believe the time is right to make this change in the best interests of Leicester moving forward. We thank Matt for his hard work, wish him well in the future, etc. First game in, gone.
Sounds like a very strange right time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're going to do this, maybe have someone else in for pre-season and all that sort of thing.
He was under pressure, clearly, from last year.
Yeah, he was, and they started badly. They lost heavily to Exeter the weekend. They replaced him with Jordan Murphy for the interim. You know, maybe there's a couple of Southern Hemisphere coaches on the market after, you know, at the end of their season, but yeah, it's very, very unusual. And you'd struggle to see where Matt O'Connor is going to go from here, because he's been booted out of Leinster, now Leicester, where he previously had a pretty good reputation. It was overlooked for a couple of Southern Hemisphere jobs as well back in Australia. So, you know, clearly didn't work for him this time around. Leicester, you know, were a picture of stability during the last decade, and it's just they've fallen so far behind Exeter and Saracens. It seems like the Premiership has all fallen a bit behind those two, and they're struggling to come to terms with it a little bit.
You were at the Sports Ground over the weekend, so the one loss on the Irish copybook was at the Sports Ground by just a single point. Glasgow came and beat Connacht 27 points to 26. There was a late penalty for Connacht. There was a chance. Craig Ronaldson missed it, but it was a difficult enough kick. Yeah. Andy Friend said, we weren't good enough to finish the game off. He said, our attack shape gives us great opportunity, momentum going forward. We have to be better in converting it into points. Was there a decent crowd at the Sports Ground?
Yeah, good crowd. Enthusiasm. Close to a sellout, if not a sellout. Yeah. Beautiful day, a really good game of rugby. At one stage, it was very hard to keep track of what was going on, because every time one team scored, the other would go down and score at the other end. Really, really good opening to the season. Glasgow came over pretty much locked and loaded. Stuart Hogg was playing fullback. He kicked the winning drop goal, and they weren't that impressive because Connacht didn't make them look good. You know, Connacht gave as good as they got for most of it, and played some really good attacking rugby. Andy Friend said, I enjoyed him after the game. He was very upfront with where he felt they needed to go. It was their work rate on the fence was what let them down, he felt, and also a bit of composure. I think their bench is the unspoken thing, that it just wasn't as strong as the Glasgow bench. But Glasgow went into the last 20 minutes 9 points behind and down to 14 men. Their Hastings, their out half, had been sin-binned, and Connacht should have seen it out from there. I think a team who were talking about being in contention this year would see that out from there at home. You know, he got a good jeering off from the Connacht supporters. It was kind of getting into party time, but Glasgow rolled up their sleeves and were really impressive in the last 20 minutes. Nothing spectacular. Dave Rennie's a guy with a really big reputation from his time with the Chiefs in New Zealand, but this was very much Northern Hemisphere bully boy rugby. They were big, they were strong, they mauled over for a try. Hogg converted it and then he nailed the drop goal with advantage. And then Ronaldson snapped the drop goal from really far out. And, you know, with Johnny Sexton in distance, when really they had time and a bit of patience, they could have got a lot closer. And then they were handed an opportunity from the penalty. Again, it was quite far out, but I have seen him kick them before. Even the fact that he took Jack Carty off, he played very well.
Because Carty didn't miss a kick all day.
I think he may have missed one a little bit earlier. He missed one actually when the one after the sin binning, from what I remember, they went 9 points. Or they were 9 points up and he missed one to put them 12 up, which probably would have put them out of sight. But there's a lot to build on for Connacht. It was a lot more positive.
Did they have a full house? Were they missing any frontline players?
Connacht?
Yeah.
Marmion hasn't come back yet. But other than that, Robin Copeland was injured. Their new out half, Horvitz, I think is still to come back from injury. But they were pretty strong. They need... And Bundyaki, is the obvious one who wasn't there. But their new centre, Kyle Gobbin, played well. He's an Australian international. They were good, and they should have seen it out, and it's a bit of a kick in the teeth, but they do have these 4 home games in the first 5. So they've Zebre at home this weekend. If they can get over the line in that one, which they should, even though the 2 Italian teams won last weekend.
Yeah.
5-6 points from the first 2 games, not a bad return, and definitely an improvement on what we saw last year.
In terms of strength of squad and players at his disposal, what does Friend have in comparison with, say, what Pat Lam had just in raw tools when Lam led them to the Pro 14, the Pro 12 as it was then?
It's similar. It's similar, except for I think Henshaw, they haven't been able to replace Henshaw. Now, Kyle Godwin's a good player, but I think Henshaw, we've seen since, is just exceptional. And they played him at 15 quite a bit that year as well. So he's a big loss. They lost Ali Muldowney. They lost the AJ McGinty as well.
Yeah.
But at times, I remember that season, Shane O'Leary came in, a fairly unheralded out half who's since been released and is playing in the second tier of English rugby now. He played a couple of games. They did dip into their academy that season, and the players that they called upon, like James Connolly, Sean O'Brien, who haven't really kicked on since, were able to produce really big performances in that season. So there were times when they were scratching around a little bit, when lads were out and stuff, and that season, those players all stepped up and performed. So they've proven that they can go into their academy players and come out with some gems. And they've a guy called Paul Boyle playing 6 this season who looks very, very good and had a good debut on Saturday. But they don't have the depth that the other provinces do. And if they do get affected by 4 or 5 Ireland call-ups, like I think they had 8 in the last training squad, that's going to be a bit of a struggle for them because the depth isn't there. Which
brings us, if you're talking squad, it brings us on to the Leinster game, naturally enough. 1 point win, a bonus point win as well in Cardiff Arms Park. There were grumblings and mumblings over in Wales by all accounts that Leinster were second. We're sending almost a 3rd string squad over. Like this is an insult to the competition and to us. And they come away with a win. I mean, I've seen not outright robbery, but
I don't know. I still don't know.
Lucky to get away with it.
I probably need to watch it back because I really don't understand how Leinster got the win in this. I think Cardiff's fitness let them down. They threw everything at them. A bit like Connacht in the last 20 that maybe didn't have the bench to come on. Leinster's bench was very good, but Leinster's defence was poor. Their decision making was pretty poor. Joe Tamani had a really poor debut. He got stripped out of the ball 4 different times and also missed a pretty key tackle for one of the tries. And going into the last
understandable kind of growing pains as he tries to fit in or something.
Yeah, I think you would give him a chance, but you expect your marquee names to come in and make an impact. Scott Fardy even had an uncharacteristic howler when he threw a quick throw into touch or in from touch that led to a Cardiff try. Just loose stuff. That is early season. The quality on all the games was probably a little bit down on what you'd expect, but it's this time of year.
Yeah.
They're going to be stronger again this week because they've had Devin Toner up for media today. He's going to be playing this week. Josh Van der Fleer's back
great.
fit. There's going to be more internationals every week that we go on. So
it's just such a bonus for them to come back.
Come
back with a bonus point win from there.
Yeah, and they're in Wales again this week. They're in Scarlet, so that's going to be a tough challenge as well. Cardiff were really good at times on Friday night, and I think they'll be like a bit like Connacht. They'll be kicking themselves because they were in a really position of ascendancy. They were really far ahead, and then Brian Byrne got 2 tries. I thought Jemison Gibson Park was excellent. Andrew Porter was excellent, all off the bench, and changed the game for Leinster. So there is. I think there was a little bit of grumbling that Leinster's pre-season games hadn't gone too well, that they were a bit concerned about the early season because of that.
Right.
That when the top guys were away, that with Nasiwa gone now, that might be a bit of a challenge. They're obviously going to grow on the fact that they got out of jail a little bit in Cardiff, but that's a good one to build on. But I think if they perform like that again in Scarlets on Saturday, they'll struggle.
Everything we know about Nasiwa suggests he was monumentally important, especially in those horrible Pro 14 weeks where the glamour,
a year ago they played Dragons away in the first game last year. He played 12, and he hadn't played 12. I don't know if he played much 12 at all before that, but that was his position for most of last season.
Yeah.
And he was up against Henson, and it was just Henson was the Dragons' big marquee name that year, and he just outclassed Henson. And everything he did was his tackling. He set the tone from the off. Now the Dragons are not a patch on Cardiff, who were a better, won the Challenge Cup last year and are improving and look a better team this year again. But
it's no coincidence Leinster wobbled when he was away. Every bit as much as when Sexton was away and when Matt O'Connor was struggling to get things right.
Absolutely. These are the weeks, and Fardy I think will be big in those weeks because Fardy has a similar kind of aura about him. The players talk about him in fairly respectful terms as well. So, and he did play very well apart from that one big mistake. And Ross Byrne was pretty good as well. So there's reasons for optimism for Leinster fans, but they can't play that badly again. But you'd expect that once the season gets going, once they get a bit of rhythm, once Van der Fleer, these lads start coming into the team, they'll start kicking on. And this won't come back to haunt them maybe until November or during the Six Nations.
Yeah, it's very hard to make any sweeping judgments after week 1.
Yeah.
That said, Munster 39, Cheetahs 0 is tempting me to make some sweeping judgments about the Cheetahs.
It's a great time to play the Cheetahs. It was a great time to play the Cheetahs last season as well, because I remember I was in South Africa for their game against Leinster, which was their second home game, and they'd been hockeyed by Connacht and Munster in their first 2 games, and they went and absolutely hammered Leinster. So they're a new team. They're basically been asset stripped. Their coach got taken by Worcester. They lost a load of players. So Franco Smith is building a new team. They were very good for 20 minutes in Thomond Park.
Okay.
Lost their captain to what looked like a pretty serious knee injury. Mahoja, he's a Springbok, 19 caps. He's a good player. So their heads dropped after that, and they looked tired. That they've just flown from South Africa to Limerick. I think getting them first up at home is a good time to play them. And Munster played quite well. Darren Sweetenham was excellent, and Neil Cronin was the big bonus. I think he's the guy they've plucked from the AIL to play at scrum half. He's jumped ahead of Williams and Hart. They've brought in Albie Mathewson to cover the All Black, to cover Conor Murray, but Neil Cronin, who's Sean's younger brother, looked the part on Saturday, and they had him in the defensive line as well. He led the defensive line. He was really aggressive. So that was a real bonus, and then they were able to roll Joey Carberry off with the game pretty much won, and he went and got the bonus point for them, and he was very impressive as well.
Was he? Yeah, so he had about half an hour, Carberry.
Yeah, very good, and he came on, and they moved JJ Hanrahan to fullback, and they moved up Mike Haley, their new signing, who had a very mixed bag, some good, some bad. They moved him onto the left wing, and I thought Carberry looked really good, and I thought Hanrahan looked like he responded to this guy coming down to take his spot. Even though, and if they can get Hanrahan anywhere near the player that we think he could have been, that we've almost given up on him being, as well as having Joey Carberry there, they have a very potent combination.
Absolutely.
There.
Interestingly, Hanrahan was talking afterwards about enjoying being at 15.
Yeah.
And suddenly you go back to 15, he said you have a lot more time, you can see a lot more, and he really enjoyed it. And he scored a try when he moved back, didn't he?
Yeah, and Carberry was involved in the build-up. Actually, Carberry was playing scrum half at that stage. He just jumped in, someone got sucked in, and his pass was absolutely excellent. And Hanrahan, we all remember what he was when he was under 20s, that couple of years when he was really kind of coming off the bench, won the game in Perpignan that time. A really exciting player, and they will miss Ebo in that playmaking regard, because when Carberry will obviously take up a lot of the load, but Zebo used to stand in there at times and dictate the play. And if they can get either Haley or Hanrahan doing that, plus the fact that Hanrahan can cover Carberry, I thought Hanrahan looked really sharp, and maybe
good.
He got a message from Carberry coming down and he's responded to it. That's what they'll hope for.
Yeah. So, by the way, before we leave Munster, was there any concrete word on Conor Murray's situation?
No.
There's even talk he's going to miss the Exeter Gloucester Champions Cup games.
He could miss November. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, the talk is that they're not giving us anything. They're not telling us what the nature of. So their injury update today had brackets around the injuries for all of the other players, but nothing for Conor Murray. The word is that he doesn't want the information coming out. It's part of a wider pushback from senior Irish players that don't want their injury information in the public domain. And the RFU seem to be backing them on that. So the RFU, so anyone who's key, anyone essentially contracted, you'd need clearance for that injury information to be released. Anyway, it's clearly not being released. It leaked out in the media. It was this day last week, or maybe it was Wednesday last week. And the word that I've heard is that it's more serious than even people have let on, that it could be as far as November. Johan van Graan's word is that it's a day-by-day situation, which is obviously no information for anyone really. Like they've signed Albie Mathewson for 4 months, so that would indicate that they're expecting to be out for at least 2 or 3 of those, because they are now. Maybe they have to get a guy over from New Zealand, or he's been in England and France the last couple of years. But if they get him over, you have to give him some level of time. But you've seen some players sign on 2-month deals before, so if you go off that, he's a doubt for November.
That's a big worry.
Yeah, it is. But I thought Cronin was really, really good. And in fairness to him, Mathewson, who is turned into a bit of a journeyman, is a good player.
Jamie Heaslip was the first who really had a privacy issue with his injuries and his back injury, which ultimately led to his retirement. And look, on the face of it, everybody would love to know what's going on, what's your injury. But if it's their medical information, they're more than entitled to say, do you know what? I'll be back when I'm back. I don't want to tell you.
Yeah, there's an argument for transparency as well. It is elite sport. There are all sorts of issues where we, an athlete or a cyclist have to give all of their injury information very, very publicly. Everything is done in the public domain. The PLCs in England, the rules that they're governed by, the English football clubs have to put their information out. The RFU are not in that situation. I'd like to know something about it. I think people who are paying money, to buy the tickets have some entitlement to know.
But have they told people it's a neck injury?
No. No.
Oh, right, that's speculation at the moment.
It's
is it?
it also invites speculation.
Yeah,
no,
sure.
it is informed speculation. The word is it's a neck/shoulder injury.
Okay. Is there logic that if they put it out, look, I've got a dodgy shoulder, they know what's going to happen to them the next time they go back and play?
That there is potentially logic there. Yeah, no, that could be an argument that's made. And also, yeah, the individual's medical information is your own. Like, I'm not going to ask you about your medical information on air because I don't have that right. But the players are a little bit, public property. They do get tax breaks at the end of their career, all that sort of stuff as well. So I don't know. There's a balance. We're very used to in professional sports knowing what's going on.
There's a tradition of it. Yeah, so there's an expectation,
and they're starting to push back on that, and we're going into interesting territory.
Yeah,
like the Dubs, no one knows what's going on behind the scenes in the Dubs. Like no one knows. Keane O'Sullivan, we all saw a hamstring, but you just don't know how long he's going to be out for. Like there's no information coming out of that camp either, and we're probably moving towards that as well, which makes kind of but it invites speculation. So yeah, what I've heard is that it could be as far as November, but if you were to go on the official Johan van Graan update, it's day by day. He could play this week, he could play next week, we just don't know. Okay,
finally then, John Cooney kicked all of Ulster's points against Scarlets, 15 points to 13. There was a last minute kick. We were curious to see what Dan McFarlane did throw out in his first game. I saw 23, I didn't see this game, 23 offloads to 5 from the Scarlets, suggested they were having a go.
It looked, Scarlets brought over a good team and went ahead early, and I think that's going to be an important win from them. I've only seen highlights of this game, but it looked like Billy Burns had a pretty good game at 10. That it's a very new look team, and it's going to take them a while. And I think a come from behind win against a team that got to the final last year with a last minute kick to win it at a fairly sparsely attended Ravenhill is going to be, well, there's a lot of empty seats. Sparsely attended is pretty strong, right, but there's a lot of empty seats. That's kind of what they need, and they've got another home game next Friday against Edinburgh, so they've got a chance to build on that a little bit as well. So it's going to take time. I think that McFarlane said it wasn't a good performance, right, but they got the win, they got the points on the board. They are going to get people on side. Cooney's becoming a very popular figure up there, and they're bringing Jordy Murphy in on Saturday or on Friday night, so that's another cog in the wheel. And then they've a couple of interesting looking players there. It's going to be, as I said last week, they're a team that are going to be very interesting to watch over the last couple of weeks. They looked a lot less fluid than all of the other provinces in terms of their attacking play and all that sort of stuff, but I think that's understandable since the head coach has only been there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, to be fair, of the 23 offloads, not a lot of them stuck was the other point, so I've botched that statistic slightly. Ruaidhri O'Connor from the Irish Independent, thanks very much.
Cheers, Joe.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball
with Air Sport. Watch every Munster and Leinster game only on the Air Sport pack. Visit airsport.ie.
Looking for student accommodation in Dublin? Introducing Sweet Grange Gorman, brand new, state-of-the-art, purpose-built student accommodation. Opening this September in the heart of Dublin City, just 500 metres from the Lewis Green and Red Lines. Sweet Grange Gorman is convenient for all city colleges. Find us on Facebook or visit swuite.com. Show apartments available